Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Emporia Writers Group's fall reading. Our theme for tonight is Halloween, as Halloween is coming up this week. We will start with our first member tonight, Carrie Moyer. He has 3 books of poetry, most recently released Turnpike Prairie. Here is Carrie Moyer.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm going to read some stuff from my books that have a Halloween type theme. There's bones and ghosts and the devil and lots of good stuff like that. We're going to start with Old Bones from my book, Dirt Road. Old Bones. Eugene pulled out his pipe, pushed a dark brown tobacco into the bowl, and struck a wooden red-tipped match. With shaky soiled hands, gray puffs of smoke danced a ghostly dance around a single glowing lamp. Wiping his brow with yellow handkerchief, his eyes fell to the bucket sitting by his side, took another pull from his favorite pipe, and asked Willie Miles what they should do with the thing in the bucket resting by Eugene's brown leather boot. Do we call the law or just talk to the preacher? Eugene sat and waited, eager for an answer, pipe smoke collecting like gray clouds on the ceiling. Willie Miles would have no lawman snooping around his place. Running shine in Missouri when he was young taught him that no good comes from talking to the law or pert near anyone. And finding a human bone under your home, well, that sort of thing was best kept from everyone. Willie took a bite of biscuit, chased it down with black coffee from his steel cup, and with a sigh began to speak. No telling how it got there, Gene. No sense in making a ruckus. Now you take that there bone, put it back where you found it, cover it up, and don't tell Edna or anyone who might want to hear it. She gets all anxious, and Miles' business is no one's to know. Anyhow, nothing under heaven is worth the fuss that she will make over that thing you found in the ground under this here house. Willie pulled rolling papers from his pocket and prepared to roll a smoke, turning from Eugene and leaving the whole of it with his empty cup and biscuit crumbs. So Eugene rose from his chair and back to the crawl space he went, with the old leg bone sitting in the bucket, gripped firmly in his shaky, soiled hand. The old bone Eugene found was placed back in the place it was found. The plumbing got fixed, and it was never spoken of again. That was Old Bones from Dirt Road. And from Rust and Weeds, I have Ghost. That's this one. Okay. Ghost. I just want to rest, it says again and again in my listening ear, keeping me from needed sleep. Dark shadows move just beyond my lantern's light. Dark shadows move in me where no light can reach. How long has he walked these narrow halls? How long has he wailed, trapped between these cracked plaster walls? I cannot help the shade that haunts this small apartment space. I just want to rest, and I'm too tired to be afraid. That was Ghost from this one. And I will finish with If I Met the Devil from Turnpike Prairie. And I'm using my bookmark today is a handkerchief of skulls. So that's very Halloween-like. If I Met the Devil. If I met the devil, I'd challenge him to a duel. 10 paces and I'd cheat. Beat him at his own game. I'd punch him in the face, poke him in his evil eye, for all the pain, for staining our souls in the garden, with the store on the street, in our homes, in church, in our heads. I'd ask him if he knows any of my kin, if he pesters them, if I'm damned for my sins. I'd ask if I could take a dip in the river Styx. I would inquire if Virgil was a guide for all the new tenants, if they scream hopeless repentance, complain about the rent. I'd ask him why he didn't settle for number 2 in heaven. I'd tell him that vanity is folly. I'd ask if he missed being loved by God. I'd ask if I could pray for him. That was If I Met the Devil from Turnpike Prairie. And thank you for listening to that. And now I'm going to introduce Curtis Becker, who is a teacher, editor, publisher, and he lives in Topeka, Kansas. His work has appeared in anthologies, literary journals, and magazines. He has presented on writing and teaching at academic conferences and to small groups. Becker's book, If He Watched and Took Note, was released in 2018. An educator for over 15 years, Becker currently teaches at Holt Middle School in Holton, Kansas. Here's Curtis Becker.
Thank you, Carrie. I appreciate the introduction. I am just going to read one piece tonight. This is a piece of fiction that has a somewhat spooky Halloween theme to it. This is its maiden voyage, if you will. The letter was dated October 31st of a recent year. My dear brother, Ron, the wind is louder now, and I am having a hard time concentrating. I really shouldn't be wasting time writing this letter to you, but I am worried something isn't right. I just can't put my finger on it. The last time I stuck my face outside of my little writing cabin, the snow stung my cheeks and nose. This is a scene more appropriate for Christmas, but here I am, snowed in on Halloween. Another log on the fire increases the light and the heat. My gratitude for the large quantity of wood fills my heart with some comfort. I shouldn't be worried, but the electricity in my phone have been off for hours, since this morning, I believe. After a bite to eat and a nap, I worked on my opus. As you know, this book has been living in my head for years. Finally, it is flowing. I should be happy. However, the ease with which the words have been coming is a bit disconcerting. Something isn't right. I hope morning will shed some light on what is causing my anxiety. Please excuse the pun. I can't decide if it was intended or not. I will turn in soon. Perhaps my dreams will be less surreal than the reality has been today. I can't wait to see you and have you read my manuscript. Soon we will talk in person and laugh about my uneasiness. It's morning, All Saints' Day, and I should go to church, but I am not going anywhere today. This morning was confusing. Something isn't right. I woke up to a chill in the cabin, even though a fire was raging just a few hours previously. This morning, the hearth is cold. There are a few scraps of wood in the bin, but not enough to get a large warming fire going. Quilts surrounding me are the next best option. Wrapped in warmth, I continue to write. The words flow as if I'm borrowing them from another's mind. They are beautiful and poignant. The masterpiece I have always wanted to write is flowing from my pen onto page after page of yellow legal pads. It is late evening, maybe. The snow and wind are louder than ever. Something isn't right. Even my quilts aren't protecting me from the cold anymore. I have decided to do the unthinkable and burn books from my library, my precious library. Oh, a bottle of whiskey helps me select the first few victims. Wood for kindling and a couple of logs I must have missed this morning join the sacred tomes and soon give me a wonderful fire. I peel off the quilts and scratch my pen across more paper. Perfection of words. The first draft is magnificent. I can't wait for you to read it, dear brother. It's nearing midnight, All Souls Day, the commemoration of the faithfully departed. Something isn't right. Is this reality? More precious volumes have sacrificed their existence for my warmth. It feels justified. I am bringing the penultimate book into existence. Their sacrifice is noble. Occasionally, I find another log that I missed. This doesn't make sense, but then none of the last few days' events really do. The one thing I'm certain of is that this book, my opus, my masterpiece, my baby, it lives, it breathes. I placed the last period. It is sometime in the middle of the night. I have lost track of time. My book is done. Time to rest. I close my eyes, content. Ron climbed out of the Jeep and waded through the snow to the cabin. Everything was as it should be, except his brother wasn't found. On the mantle above the hearth was the letter written to him over the course of a few days last week. Ron surveyed the cabin in light of the letter. The electric lights and appliances appeared to be working. The wood bin was fully stocked, and wood was even piled by the door. The library was in pristine shape. Where was his sibling? It was almost as if he had never been in the cabin. Ron looked for the manuscript. It was as ephemeral as his brother. The manuscript and the mind it poured from both vanished in the blizzard. Ron never read the masterpiece or located its author. All right, thank you, everyone. Our next person reading tonight, Tracy Amelia Simmons. She is the boss, the publisher in charge at Meadowlark Books. One of the projects of Meadowlark Books right now is the Meadowlark 105 Reader. The fall edition will be in the mail shortly. Here is Tracy.
Thank you. October is pretty much my favorite month, and Halloween is my favorite holiday. And I couldn't believe when I started looking that I've never really written much about Halloween. I think that's because I'm usually busy eating candy and dressing up. So this is a story. I'm taking you way back to 1984. I wrote this story in 1984 when I was 14 years old. So this is the scariest story I've ever written. So hang on to your blankies. I Wasn't Scared is the title. The house moaned and whined as it shifted into a restless sleep. The trees scratched on my windows and the moon glistened in the sky, submitting a steady yellow beam onto my carpet. Despite the icy drafts in my quarters, I got up and walked to my window. I stood shivering as I gazed out into the night, listening to the howling of the wind. Because of the many trees, the only thing I could see was the barn, a homely barn with its rotting rafters and dusty cobwebs which hung everywhere. The barn had probably once been beautiful when it was new. Little remained of red paint. The sliding doors had fallen off their hinges long ago, leaving somber holes in the side. I disliked the barn from the beginning. Something evil lurked there. I could feel it every time I went near. Something was warning me to stay away. It haunted my dreams. I sat up in bed with a startling jolt. What had awakened me? The barn. It was calling me to come. It wanted to scare me. I hurriedly put on my garments and rushed outside. As I neared the barn, I slowed, for it was watching me, waiting for me to come so it could devour me. I knew it wouldn't harm me, though. Not yet. It was like the cat who liked to play with its mice before the final blow. I wasn't scared, not this time, nor the next. I entered, one cautious step after another, jumped, startled by a large rat that scampered across my path. I made my way through the hallways, looking into the stables and other tiny rooms that were spaced throughout the barn. Shadows danced in the corners. At times, I could hear footsteps behind me, though nothing would be following. Ghostly laughter rippled through the hallways, echoing, trying to confuse me. But I wasn't scared. Not that time, nor the next. I didn't enter the barn again for many days. When I did, before I could get 3 feet from the entrance, the old broken down door swung back onto its hinges, locking me inside. I ran to the door, screaming and pounding, only to discover it was no use. I would never get out. I turned to look and saw large bubbles had covered the wall. Grotesque blisters that became larger and larger began to cover my hands and my legs. Little gray worms began to pop out of them and squirm all over, then sink back into my skin. The barn didn't scare me. It tried, but it never succeeded. I think I would have won if it weren't for those people who came and interfered. They came and got me and wouldn't let me finish the battle. As I walked into the barn for the last time, I was prepared for any strange events that might occur, but the barn didn't fool around. It beckoned me to the hayloft. It was ready to kill the mouse, but I was prepared and I knew I couldn't lose. If only they hadn't stopped me, I would have won. The loft was empty except for a couple of hay bales stacked in one corner. A creature about 4 feet high approached me, dribbling foam from his mouth. He had small, sharp ears and eyes that quivered and twitched. He walked in a hunched over manner, his arms almost dragging the ground. I could feel the heat from his body as he stood and glared at me, but I wasn't scared. The battle began. I had trouble keeping up with him at first. He would dart from corner to corner, ceiling to floor. He didn't fight fair, but I never once got scared. I knew I would win. He slapped me from wall to wall. I got in a few good hits myself, but mainly stayed up by wit. I was smarter than he and found I could baffle him by making loud noises and surprising him. Then they came. They came in their white jackets and shoes, strapping me into a bed and ignoring my pleas to let me finish the battle. As they took me away, I could hear the barn laughing. It was laughing at me. White is such a dull, boring color. Everything here is white. Even my jacket, which has no opening for my hands, it's white. They sewed my arms to the shoulders. They think I'm crazy and they tell me that I'll get better, but I'm going back to finish that battle. I'm not scared. And that's my story about the barn, which is a real barn, by the way.
Thank you, Tracy. Appreciate your story. Very good for a 14-year-old. Very good for I enjoyed it. So thank you. So next we have Deb Ersick. Deb is the author of the middle grade fiction series, Heroes by Design. Here is Deb.
Okay, I have a short story and then a poem if there's time, and if not, then I will. I didn't time this, but I don't think it's too long. Okay, it's called Scarecrow. It happened when my brother and I decided to take a shortcut through the cornfield next to Grandma's farm. We had done it hundreds of times in the daylight. It was getting late and we were tired and hungry. We could almost smell Grandma's fried chicken wafting in the breeze. Come on, Lainey, it's not a lot faster and I'm hungry. My brother pulled me into the tall stalks. I don't wanna. It's itchy and too tall. I can't tell where I'm going. I pulled back. Joe smiled. Come on, I'll protect you. There's nothing to be afraid of. He charged ahead. The corn stalks were a foot or two above my head, and I had to run to keep up. The shadows quickly became ominous, and I did my best to keep Joe close. Joe, stop! I grabbed for his hand. We're lost. I could barely squeak. We had been running, and my heart pounded wildly in my chest, partly due to the exertion, but mostly it was the fear that was creeping up my spine. Joe shook his head. We're okay, Lainey. I just got a little turned around. Stay close. I got this. I tried to keep up. I wanted to believe that he knew where we were, but I could hardly tell my right foot from my left. I shrieked and stopped dead. Joe shrieked. I slammed into his back. Damn and tarnation. It's just an old scarecrow, Lainey. It like to scare the bejesus out of me. I was sobbing and laughing at the same time. I rarely saw Joe shook up enough, and my heart was pounding in my ears. Joe, let's go. This is creepy. I pulled on his sleeve. Let's get out of here. Joe smiled. It's a good thing we ran into our friend here, because now I know where we are. The scarecrow is on the east side of the field, so we just have to go straight north to get to Grandma's road. Let's go. I grasped the tail of his jacket and followed him. The noises of the night seemed to surround us and come closer. The hair stood up on the back of my neck, and I felt eyes on me. Joe, run! Something's following us. I sped past him, lungs bursting and fear moving my feet. I just kept running. I slowed down. I couldn't hear Joe's footsteps behind me. Joe? Joe? Where are you? My tears clouded my vision, and suddenly a watery apparition was standing in front of me. His beady eyes and blood red slash smile mocked me, and I turned and crashed into Joe. Joe, it's the scarecrow. It's following us. We can't go that way. Stop, Lainey. It's okay. We just got separated for a minute. He held me close and rubbed my back until I calmed down enough to tell him about the scarecrow. These shadows can make us see things, Lainey. It's just your imagination playing tricks on you. I'm not going to let anything happen to you. He held my hand and led me out of the cornfield. Grandma's road. I started crying again and ran down the road and up on Grandma's porch. Grandma came out with her hands on her hips and looked over my head, buried in her shoulder. What's all this, Joe? Supper's ready and you should have been home a half hour ago. We told Grandma our story, and after my belly was full and we were in the warm glow of Grandma's kitchen, it was a lot easier to believe that I imagined the scarecrow. 2 days after, Grandma and I saw the farmer that owned the field in the hardware store in town. Grandma told him about our scare. Really? Now that's an odd thing, because that scarecrow went missing. We can't find hide nor hair of him. I suppose some pranksters took him off. Then he turned and looked at me, blinking his beady eyes and blood red slash of a smile.
Thank you, Deb, very much.
Yes. Do we have time? I have a quick
Yes.
autumn. Okay.
I
This is a new poem as well.
Oh, awesome. Great.
Autumn. The colors are of earth, not sky, no soft pinks or blues, but vibrant earthy hues, orange, brown, red, yellow, spun in golden highlights. These colors are what remains, rushing through the veins of grasses, of trees celebrating victory over drought and flood, thriving, surviving, heat, wind, pestilence, surviving. They wave their colors, jubilant. Proud as they prepare for the retreat to Mother Earth. Colors of earth, not sky. A final splash on the canvas of life until it begins again.
All right. Thank you very much, Deb. We appreciate your story and your poem. Thank you. Our last presenter this evening, Dr. Kevin Ravis. He is the past Poet Laureate of Kansas from 2017 through 2019. He has 14 books in print, including the latest, Improvise, and More Than Words. Here is Kevin Ravis.
Thanks, Curtis. My story is called Glass Scratch. Ben looked sickly when his family moved, pale, cheeks almost green or blue. I wondered if they were moving to the beach, from Kansas grasslands and their quiet, sequestered suburbs to the coast with its white sun, its sand and expanse, its beach houses on brown stilts at the sea's fringe. I dreamed bald-headed, thin, 9-year-old Ben would return one day and visit. Instead, he seemed to come at night. But before all that, Ben had been my best friend. I carted my G.I. Joe plastic figures in a big brown box to his house on the corner with his white dog that never barked, just sniffed at my carted toys. Ben had 3 of the Team Cobra scuba men with flippers and harpoon guns, so good for a deep brown puddle or the tub, or when we went, Ben left me one. He left me the scuba man, and I put the little plastic man in my front pocket and hugged Ben. We used to take our men in the rain, in the sun, in the snow. The snowcat mobile holding 3 made tracks across the drifts and slopes, and we'd hop little men with skis out into the white powder. Though each of us played a side, no one won. We'd tumble a man face down, and he was done. We never argued or fought. 3 weeks after his move, my mother got a call from Ben's mother, the red cord ringlets stretching the room and gone tight, a line, a wire, and mother choked up, cried droplets into the holes in that phone, said, "Honey, Ben's not coming back. He's gone." I know, he moved. No, Mom said, he's truly gone, sweetie. He was very, very sick. Now he's gone. Dead? Dead. I cried. I lined up my plastic figures around a hole in the winter snow. We 21 guns saluted. We lowered the scuba man down. That night, my parents asleep, I heard a sound in the new moon night of starshine, but no pale moon glow. What I heard was a scratching at my window. Scritch, scratch, scritch, scratch. I rose in my PJs and went to the window. That's where the scratching had come. Scritch, scratch, scritch, scratch, like ice upon glass. I pulled the blinds and there was Ben, pale as ever, skin like vanilla, like snow, and his nails were unusually long, and he pawed them at the glass as if drawing lines, his mouth open but soundless, like a man drowned, his feet bare, shoeless, his body floating. And I called to him, "Ben, Ben," and as if his name were enough to trick up, he turned slow, revolved, and floated up and off into the stars. So there's my Halloween story. It had a vampire in it. Okay, well, I was the last one, so I want to say thank you everybody for listening from the Emporia Writers Group, which meets right now Wednesdays after work. You can get a hold of one of us to find out where, but it's in Emporia. Thanks for listening to the Word from Emporia and to our scary stories.